We also have a man, Dana White, who has done some
America is preparing for its 250th anniversary, and a story that has never been seen before is popping up in the news. UFC on the South Lawn of the White House. Conor McGregor is already assuring everyone that everything has been signed and delivered, and is naming his price tag, 100 million plus 100 so-called golden visas. Is this realistic? Let's break it down. Without getting boring, but with facts, money, and politics. What we know right now. According to Dana White and numerous reports, in 2026, the UFC really plans to hold a historic event on the South Lawn of the White House in honor of the 250th anniversary of the United States. There have even been reports of weigh-ins at the Lincoln Memorial and screens on the ellipse for spectators, as well as strict attendance limits for security reasons. We're talking about a few thousand VIP seats, not a stadium. This is not the fantasy of fans. Major publications wrote about the idea, and White himself discussed the details with the administration. At the same time, a number of details are still up in the air and changing as preparations continue. Conor's voice. Conor does what he does best. He takes the information field hostage. He has already stated on air that his participation in the show on the lawn is a done deal. The same message was spread by specialized MMA media. But an important note, the fight itself, the opponent, the date, and the contract with the UFC usually only become reality when all the signatures are on paper and the fights are entered into the card. Throughout the fall, Dana White has emphasized that it is too early to announce specific matchups. In other words, we have a loud statement from a superstar, and at the same time, caution from the organizers. Is 100 million a lot or normal? Let's put the numbers on the table. When McGregor boxed Mayweather in 2017, his total earnings were estimated at around 100 million. In the UFC, his paychecks were also astronomical. Tens of millions per night from PPV, and sponsorship deals are no myth. But 100 million in pure fees for a UFC fight is still an excessive demand. A bar that even for Conor looks like a bet on the uniqueness of the venue and the moment. The historical scale of the event and the new UFC media package in the US suggests that demand may meet supply. In August 2025, TKO and Paramount announced a 7-year deal worth approximately $7 billion. In 2026, all tournaments will move to Paramount Plus, some to CBS, and the classic PPV model will become a rarity. If the White House is a showcase for a new era, camera lenses and ratings come at a high price. What are 100 golden visas all about? The EB-5 investor immigration program has long existed in the US, where a person invests capital in a business and creates jobs, after which they can apply for a green card. The minimum threshold is 800,000 in targeted areas, with nuances under the 2022 law. But EB-5 is not a coupon book that someone can write out in bulk to a popular fighter. Each case goes through the USCIS and State Department procedures, with quotas and checks. In the fall of 2025, the Trump administration simultaneously announced a separate initiative called Gold Card, expedited visas for a substantial financial contribution, coordinated through the Department of Commerce in conjunction with DHS and the State Department. Public materials mention amounts starting at $1 million for individuals and options for companies, and legal implementation is tied to an executive order and subsequent rulemaking by several agencies. And this is where the 100 gold cards that Conor mentions come in. Technically, this is no longer the classic EB-5, but a new path. One that is politically sensitive and probably legally controversial. Requesting this publicly is a move in the style of McGregor. Loud, bold, and on the verge of taboo. Politics, television, and box office. Why is the UFC even bringing the octagon to the lawn? Because it's the shot of the century. Because by 2026, the promotion will have a new giant media partner in the American market. And it needs its first super cover, an image that will spread around the world like Mayweather versus Pacquiao or the debut fights at MSG, because the White House is not just an address, it is a symbol. In the 2025-2026 TV market, every exclusive event is gold, so the fighters' demands are sky high. There is no right price here. There is a price that the market is willing to pay for a minute of history. The only question is who will share this price and how. The promotion, the platform, the sponsors, the state, as the owner of the venue, logistics, and common sense. Let's start with the grass. According to the business press, the very fact of assembling the arena on the lawn means the subsequent replacement of the turf at a cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Plus installation, security, the burden on the residents' schedule, coordination with the security service. Separately, there are additional measures at the Lincoln Memorial if the weigh-in ceremony is indeed held there. There will be no mass audience at the cage itself. A limited VIP pool is expected, and for the rest of the audience, there will be large screens in the park. It's a beautiful but very complex engineering project. And what about Conor's opponent? According to Sporting Logic, it should be Michael Chandler, the same opponent from 2024 when the fight was cancelled due to a toe injury. But time is passing and everything changes quickly in the UFC. Dana White has repeatedly reminded us that it is too early to announce the card, and Conor himself has changed his plans more often than he has entered the cage in recent years. However, if there is anywhere to expect his comeback, it is at such an event. For Chandler, it's a lottery ticket. For the UFC, it's a guarantee of headlines. For Conor, it's a chance to finish his story where the whole world can hear it. The White House and sports. Are there any precedents? The White House has long been a venue for ceremonies and concerts, from Easter traditions to Elton John's performance on that very lawn. And if you dig deeper, Theodore Roosevelt loved boxing and sparred in the White House, once paying for it with his eyesight. A UFC fight on the lawn is on a much larger scale, but it's not out of place if you look at it as a national spectacle for the country's birthday. Money math for the sake of the show. Let's think out loud. 100 million for Conor, plus 100 gold cards. If we take the specified threshold for the gold card even minimally, these amounts are comparable to the fee, only now as contributions to the state. Against the backdrop of the UFC's multi-billion-dollar media deal, it looks like an equation where each side symbolically emphasizes the scale. But there are subtleties here. How exactly such visa requests can be reconciled with legal limits, civil service ethics, and the interests of sponsors. This is precisely what makes the bargaining so loud. Conor's demands sound as if he is asking not only for a check, but also to rewrite the symbolic arithmetic of the holiday. Reality versus hype. The reality is this. As of October 4th, 2025, the very fact that a UFC show is being planned on the lawn has been publicly confirmed at the promotional level and in numerous reports. The final card, the fighters' conditions, and the technical arrangements may change until the last minute. That's how this business works. Conor's statement is pressure on the negotiations and an attempt to get to the top of the price list. Dana White always leaves himself room for maneuver in such moments. And the idea of golden visas is part of a new, controversial, and still developing program that has already sparked debate in the press, law firms, and among economists. Simply put, the show looks real, but the numbers are still a game of nerves. What could go wrong? Injuries and timing. McGregor has already withdrawn from the 2024 event due to injury, and his body is not getting any younger. Political risks. The White House is a highly sensitive entity, and every decision there is subject to double scrutiny. Legal issues. Any new visa program is a delicate matter involving the executive branch, departmental instructions, and the courts. Logistics, weather, protocol, proximity to federal facilities, grass, sound, lighting, evacuation. To be honest, it is precisely because of these points that Conor's participation is the most variable factor. Pasha, 04/10/2025, 13:40. And if everything works out, imagine. A warm evening in Washington, the camera pans across the oval living room and out onto the lawn, where the cage shines. The weigh-ins under Lincoln Steps have already taken place, tens of thousands have gathered at the Ellipse, and the broadcast is airing in prime time on CBS and streaming on Paramount+. At the microphone is Dana, with America 250 in the credits. And from behind the scenes comes the man who once rewrote the rules of MMA marketability. That's the point of the 100 million request. Not because the 2026 fight is guaranteed to be one of the greatest in terms of quality, but because the moment is guaranteed to go down in history. Final verdict. This is what can be said about McGregor's fight on the White House lawn. The UFC event itself at the White House in 2026 is highly likely because it coincides with the interests of the state, the media market, and the promotion. Conor's participation is likely, but it has not been publicly confirmed on the fight card, and we should not expect any matchups from the UFC itself before February 2026. 100 million and 100 golden visas are a bargaining chip and an information weapon that works perfectly for his image. Is it feasible? Theoretically, yes, with legal and political caveats. Is it likely to happen in full? Probably not. But Conor has always been able to achieve not everything, but half of it, and his half is usually more dramatic than someone else's maximum. What to watch next? In the coming months, we will be monitoring 3 indicators. First, official UFC announcements. The exact date, weigh-in location, and card. Second, news about the gold card, agency instructions, first cases, legal disputes. Third, Conor's sports updates, recovery, entry into testing programs, first full sparring sessions. As soon as these three lines converge, we will understand where the show is and where the smoke show is. For now, it's a perfect storm of American sports and politics, where one lawn can turn into the most expensive square of grass on the planet.